On the night of June 11, 1962, the waters around San Francisco Bay were colder than death. Waves slapped against the jagged rocks of Alcatraz Island, a mile-long fortress rising in the dark like the back of a prehistoric beast. For decades, Americans believed something with absolute certainty. No one escapes from Alcatraz. Not alive. Armed guards patrolled the cell blocks. Searchlights swept across the water. Steel doors groaned like monsters in their sleep. And behind those bars lay the most dangerous men in America, men too bold, too brilliant, or too brutal for any normal prison. But on this night, inside cell block B, three silhouettes moved like shadows behind shadows. One of them was Frank Morris, a man with a genius-level IQ and eyes that saw possibilities where others saw walls. Beside him, the Anglin brothers, Clarence and John, quiet, disciplined, and strangely loyal. As the guards made their final rounds, everything seemed normal. Until morning. When the prison erupted with a scream that echoed through steel and stone. They're gone. What followed became one of the most legendary mysteries in American history. A story of genius, courage, illusion, and a disappearance that still haunts the FBI. This is the story of the men who challenged the impossible. This is the story of the escape from Alcatraz. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison. It was a symbol of fear, of control, and of unbreakable authority. Located in the icy waters of San Francisco Bay, the island was surrounded by currents strong enough to tear the breath from a swimmer's lungs. Inside, prisoners lived under total surveillance. Doors made of reinforced steel. Concrete walls thick enough to outlive the men inside them. To the authorities, Alcatraz was more than secure. It was perfect. But perfection hides flaws, if you know where to look. And Frank Morris knew exactly where to look. Frank Morris had a childhood that felt like a long road of foster homes, arrests, and escapes. But one thing always set him apart. He was unbelievably smart. His IQ put him in the top 2% of the population. To the guards he was quiet, polite, obedient. To fellow inmates, he was a strategist, a thinker. To himself, he was a man who refused to die in a cage. When he was transferred to Alcatraz in 1960, Frank studied everything. The routines, the officers, the architecture, even the vibrations of the walls. And it didn't take long for him to find two men who shared his hunger for freedom. John and Clarence Anglin were not ordinary criminals. They were professional bank robbers, but with a surprising twist. They were excellent swimmers. Growing up in rural Florida, the brothers spent summers diving into icy lakes. The kind of cold that most people couldn't survive. It was a skill that Alcatraz never prepared for. The Anglins were tough, calm, and capable. And when Frank Morris began discussing the possibility of escape, the brothers didn't hesitate. History was about to change. Most prisoners dreamed of escape. Frank Morris planned it. The first step was to understand the structure of Alcatraz itself. Behind each cell was a narrow maintenance corridor. If the men could tunnel through the back of their cells, they could reach the corridor unnoticed. But the walls were made of concrete. Only luck made it possible. The salt-filled ocean air had eroded the walls over time. The concrete had become soft, almost crumbly. Frank noticed this. Then he noticed another thing. In the evenings, the prison band practiced in the dining hall. Music, loud enough to mask the sound of scraping. The environment wasn't just a prison. It was a tool. And Frank Morris knew how to use it. With stolen spoons, old saw blades, and even pieces of vacuum motor metal, the men began carving their escape tunnels. Night after night. Flake by flake. The tunnels grew from the size of a coin to the size of a fist, to an opening just big enough for a man to squeeze through. They hid the holes with cardboard, painted to look like the walls. If a guard passed by, nothing looked suspicious. Inside the maintenance corridor, they built a makeshift workshop. Here, they began creating the most daring prop of their plan. Life-size dummy heads. Using prison soap, toilet paper, glue, paint, and even real hair stolen from the prison barbershop. They created heads so realistic that in dim light, even a trained guard wouldn't notice the difference. Every night, they placed the heads on their pillows, tucked blankets to look like sleeping bodies, and continued digging. By now, 4 men were involved. Frank, Clarence, John, and another inmate, Alan West. West was smart, resourceful, but slow. And in the final moment, that would become his tragedy. Digging was only half the plan. They needed something to survive the bay. So they stole more than 50 raincoats. Some from laundry rooms. Some from yard workers. Some directly from other inmates. They stitched, glued, melted, and inflated the coats into a long rubber raft. They made paddles out of plywood taken from workshops. To seal everything, they used heat from steam pipes and stolen glue. Piece by piece, the impossible became real. June 11, 1962. Everything was ready. The guards completed their rounds. Lights dimmed. The men waited for the moment. One by one, they removed the vent covers and squeezed into the tunnel. Frank went first. Then John. Then Clarence. But when Alan West tried to follow, he was stuck. His tunnel opening was too small. He had miscalculated by half an inch. He struggled, panicked, pushed, screamed silently. But it was no use. Frank and the Anglin brothers whispered that they couldn't wait any longer. Staying meant getting caught. Unable to free West, they climbed up the plumbing pipes, emerged onto the roof, and disappeared into the night. They slid down the far side of the building, reached the rocky shore, inflated their raft. At around 10:30 p.m., the 3 men quietly pushed off into the black water. The current swept them away. Where? No one knows. At dawn, a guard tapped Frank Morris's bars. "Wake up." The dummy head rolled onto the floor. Fake hair scattered like dust. The guard screamed. Alarms exploded across the island. The prison went into lockdown. Boats rushed into the bay. FBI teams poured onto the island. Helicopters roared overhead. But nothing was found. No raft. No bodies. No sign of the 3 men. Only silence. For 17 years, the FBI hunted for answers. They did experiments. They launched dummy rafts. They tested ocean temperatures. Their conclusion? Most likely, the men drowned. But there was a problem. No bodies ever surfaced. And the Anglin family claimed they received Christmas cards signed by the brothers. Handwriting experts said the signatures looked real. The 2013 letter. In 2013, San Francisco police received a letter. It said, "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in 1962. Yes, we all made it that night." The letter demanded medical treatment in exchange for surrender. But by that time, John would have been in his 80s. The FBI tested the letter. The handwriting. The fingerprints. Results? Inconclusive. The mystery deepened. Some believe the men drowned. Some believe they reached Angel Island, stole a car, and vanished. Some believe they escaped to Brazil, supported by old photographs showing 2 elderly men resembling the Anglin brothers. The truth? No one knows. And maybe that's why the story continues to live. Because mysteries never die. They left no trail. No witnesses. No confirmed fate. Just a question that still echoes across the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. Did 3 men truly escape the world's most secure prison? Or did the ocean claim the secret forever? Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. No escape in history has ever been as daring, brilliant, or haunting as the escape from Alcatraz.